In sports training, there's an important distinction between being good at an exercise and being able to properly perform the broader movement pattern that exercise belongs to. This is one of the main differences between traditional weight training and sports like CrossFit, for example. Today, I'll clarify this topic. Let's start with an example to make sure we're all on the same page. A Romanian deadlift is a specific exercise that uses the hip hinge pattern, so a hip flexion and a hip extension, just like a GHD extension, a kettlebell swing, or a hip thrust, for example. These are all different exercises that share the same global movement pattern. Similarly, a cyclist squat, a Bulgarian split squat, or a leg extension are all different movements sharing the same global pattern of knee extension, among others. When you train with weights purely for strength development without aiming to transfer that strength to another sport, you usually try to get stronger at specific exercises such as the bench press or the deadlift, rather than trying to improve on the overall movement pattern. Meaning you will want to get stronger on the bench press and not necessarily on the global pushing pattern, even though both are tied to a relative extent. In contrast, athletes use the same exercises, but not just for their own sake. Instead, they're using them to develop physical qualities such as strength, power, explosiveness, speed, endurance, and so on, to then transfer those physical abilities to their own sport. Take the example of a soccer player using the squats to develop his lower body abilities. His goal won't be to become the best possible at squatting, but rather to build power and strength that will transfer onto the pitch. That's why exercises like squats are helpful for assessing an athlete's strength, but not their sport-specific performance. A soccer player is not better than another simply because he squats more weight. This distinction shows up clearly in CrossFit, which blends both perspectives. On one hand, CrossFitters train basic lifts to improve their performance specific to these movements. On the other hand, they must prepare for all kinds of unpredictable exercises that are harder to train specifically. Their challenge is to develop their performance across as many movement patterns as possible to be ready for whatever comes up in competition, while still being specifically good at common and recurring movements such as snatches, squats, pull-ups, burpees, and so on. And in any case, CrossFit has such a broad variety of movement and physical abilities that are tested in competition that it is impossible to train and pick them all year round. The key takeaway here is that performance requires strategy. You need to know what kind of movement you're training. Always be clear on whether you want to excel at specific exercises, global movement patterns, or both, and train accordingly to maximize your potential and optimize your training sessions. To wrap this up, remember, it's not all or nothing. Training global movement patterns can be helpful for athletes that want to excel at specific exercises, and likewise, training global movement patterns can sometimes effectively transfer to specific exercises' performance if programmed wisely. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, suggestions, or anything else, feel free to drop a comment down below, and if you want to contact me straight through my social medias, the links are in the description. I'll see you next Sunday, and until then, train hard, stay consistent, and never forget, make yourself proud.